Emily. Hi, I want to share something about my late grandpa. Before my late grandpa left us forever, I felt something weird when I took care of him. After my grandpa finished his dinner and eating pills, I put my grandpa on bed. I let him sleep so that I can study for my final exam. So I don't want to disturb him in his sleep. I go to kitchen and study. I love to listen to music when I study, so I don't want to make any noises as my place was a village. So I listen using my earphone. Not so long I was study. Suddenly I felt goosebumps and felt like someone is watching me, but ignore it. I still felt goosebumps when I continued my study, but this time I felt like someone was watching me on my left side. I can feel something evil on my left side watching me so near. I cannot stand anymore, so without tidying my books, I left the kitchen. And guess what? As I entered my grandpa's room, I saw him sit while he was pointing his finger to a living room. There were only both of us on that time, no one else. I felt like something happened, so I said to my grandpa, there was nothing out there, while helping him to lay down again. I reached my rosary and pray. There are so many things happened when my late grandpa was still alive. I will share another one my next post, if I am not busy. Thanks for reading. I am sorry if there are grammatical error on my story. I can't speak or write English so well, but I hope you guys understand. From Megan Tapey. So about a year ago, my husband and my kids moved into a 3-bedroom apartment. We are the bottom right apartment. There are 4 apartments per building. Across from us is a family that we really enjoy spending time with. But for a while, we didn't know much about the tenants above us on either side. When we first moved in all night long right above us, we would hear a kid running stomping back and forth upstairs. Banging would happen sounding like metal hitting the ground. We would hit the ceiling and even knock on the door but no one answered. My husband and I both experienced what sounded like someone walking very quickly through the living room into the hallway, and it would stop right at our bedroom door. You would freeze just waiting for someone to barge in. One day it calmed down, and we had assumed they had moved. We came across the tenant coming downstairs, and we got to talking, and I said to him that there was a kid up all night running. He stared at me with confusion and said, "We have been here 3 years. We have never had a child living here." We kind of laughed it off, but we were both kind of struck by it. Move forward about a month. My husband and I were in the bedroom around midnight, and he shut up our bed yelling, "Boys, get back in bed." I asked him what he was talking about. He said he heard one of our boys run in the hallway. He laid back down assuming he was just using the bathroom, and then we both heard the run go in the other direction. No toilet flush and no doors opening or closing like we would hear it if it was my son. So my husband got up and checked on the kids, and they were all out cold. As soon as he laid back down, we heard the footsteps run through the living room. He jumped out of the bed again and went to look, and of course, there was nothing. A few nights later, my sister-in-law came to stay the night. She was sleeping on the couch and woke, noticed that the fridge door in the kitchen was opening. She was half asleep and assumed it was one of us or the boys and laid back down. She felt something messing with her hair. She thought it was one of the farts, but they were all caged. She heard 2 voices which she thought was my husband and I whispering in the kitchen as if we were quietly arguing. She heard a voice say,
"This is your problem. Fix it."
She sat up to listen closer, and as soon as she did, the voice said,
"Quiet. Don't wake them up."
She slowly went into the kitchen, and of course no one was there. We thought maybe it was the neighbors, but if it was, then it wouldn't sound like a whisper. A week or so later, I got a knock at my door from my neighbor asking me if I'm okay. "Yes, I'm fine." "Why?" He swore he heard me crying. I had been in my room listening to music. He swore up and down that he heard it from my apartment. He seemed genuinely bothered by the fact it wasn't me. At risk of sounding weird, I explained not to feel bad and what had been happening in our apartment. His jaw dropped. Mind you, this man is a skeptic. He said that for a month, he's been hearing what he thought was his grandson get out of bed and run around the apartment, but there was no one there. He was seeing something dark. The fridge was opening. He thought it was his grandson, but I think realized right then that it was something there. A few days after the man above us started hearing the footsteps as well. Things go missing in all apartments. The people across from him don't have any animals or small children. After seeing a few shadows dart in my own apartment, we thought it finally calmed down. Both people in the upstairs units have moved and it is completely empty, which is why I was reminded to write this, because we, for 2 nights in a row now, have heard the child's footsteps running back and forth upstairs. AFNP Creepy Stories. I remember when I went camping. It was a beautiful, long and shiny day that could make people feel happy. That great and friendly feeling of happiness was like when one wins the lottery and everybody behaves politely with one. This environment felt good until the early dark night fell, making everything get weird. Now that the long dark night had come, all the people that went there decided to keep on having fun and did a non-controlled cheap party in which nobody had spent much money in drinking and eating because we all had already planned the party and bought everything we needed in a cheaper supermarket. An important detail is that the ancient forest where the campers were doing the party smelled like a battlefield after a horrible battle. There was a part that seemed to be those places where criminals go get rid of the victim's corpse, but nobody cared about and continued with the party. Many people there were so drunk and did so much drugs that they didn't hear a creepy loud sound. The few ones who heard said it was like someone asking for help. Once some friends of mine and I hear what the weirdos in the party heard the scream too. We decided to go to see. But contrary to many people do in those horror movies, we took some machetes and a friend brought a handgun he has in his backpack. I think his gun was a Glock 19. After walking for half an hour through the forest towards the sound, we found like a big area where there were no trees. At first, it seemed to be another camping zone, but it was not because there were some people doing a kind of circle, and there was a group of rocks in the middle of their circle that they used as a table where there was a naked person tied to some sticks in the floor. But it was not the worst of that night. One of our group broke something, and they heard it. They found out that we were looking what they were doing and starting shooting against us. My friend, the one with the handgun, shot them back, but died after receiving 10 shots. I, as the bravest man there, ran back not to the camping zone but to the entrance of the forest where I was picked up by a truck that brought me to the closest town. There I went to the police station to tell them the situation. The police went to see what I was talking about, and once they arrived, the weird people had disappeared. In the morning, the news informed to the whole country about the most horrible crime scene in 15 years. The police not only found the sacrifice place, but also the camping where the group of campers was having fun. There were corpses everywhere, some with many shots and some others were open and had no organ inside. But the worst of all is that the police realized some of the wounds in the corpse looked like human bites. Now that I finally could tell this situation, I will finally go to rest if the nightmares allow me to. This is the 7th day I'm awakened because I see 5 people looking at me all night long. I told this to the police, but they don't believe me. They think it's due to the trauma of surviving that situation. I can't even buy a gun to defend myself due to the trauma. I know it's real. The shadows can't cut me. I told this to the police too, and they think I do it myself. I'm fed up with this. I don't know how long I could continue living with fear. More Than a Nightmare by AFMP. I remember that night when I went to bed. Everything there was very dark. That seemed it was a creepy tall black shadow. I could see just a shadow getting close to me. That's why I'd say that it was the night when I knew the real fear. But not only that. The days passed and everything came back to the normal, boring and shining environment which people do their daily assignments in. It's the kind of environment when the only fun to do is just nothing better than going to the river and sharing with the common young people that are meant to be my friends. By the time I'd been since I met my friends, and after the shadow told me something to my ear, I started feeling that I was going to become a kind of silly big old beast who comes from the deepest holes in hell, and I wanted or needed to feed myself with the horrible red liquid of life that tastes like a piece of rusty iron fork. The weirdest thing is that I knew that the situation I was living was a fake reality, like those weird, endless, eternal dreams that seem to be a living nightmare. Since the beginning of the awesome eternal dream, which has no difference to any horrible endless nightmare, and which none of them make any sense, I could find out that the shadow is no more than the creepy natural invoking call of nature that wants to make my dark demons take control of me and my soul to cause the damage that only a dead human mind can do. After I woke up, I felt great, because I thought that I was never going to have that dream again, and it was a shining and fresh day that shows happiness everywhere. Then I woke up again, and the day changed to the creepy dark environment where all the walls of the house started to cover themselves with the red liquid of life. And I started listening to the grotesque whispering voice. It finally told me what I have to do. I do not want to do it, because it will hurt many people. But it's the only way to silence that voice, the Shadow's one. From Anthony Bradley. The most scariest thing that happened to me. When I was around 14 years old, I lived in Preston, Lancashire with my parents. Beyond our back garden, there was a cemetery. It was at the time, and still is today, referred to as the Old Cemetery. One night, me and my friends got through the old cemetery. We would do this very often because it was a brilliant way to get to where we lived on the estate. One night, around 6 p.m. during the winter months, my 4 friends and I were cutting through the old cemetery. We noticed that one of the tombstones had been pushed back and you could clearly see coffins on shelves. It was a family of tombs. From the inscriptions on the tombstone, it dated back to the 1820s. My friends dared me to go down into the tomb, so because it was dark in the tomb, I lit a long piece of paper and slowly went down into the tomb. It was terrifying. As I walked down the steps eventually, I got to the bottom of the tomb steps. I turned to look around and to see my friends. To my horror, my friends had slid the concrete slab over the entrance shot. This meant that I was stuck in the tomb all alone on my own. I had a box of matches with only 3 matches left in the box. I was so terrified, I couldn't move. Each time I lit a match, I could see those awful coffins. I was stuck down there for 3 long hours until one of my friend's parents came to my rescue and pulled me out. I can honestly say that it was the most frightening experience of my entire life. Hello! Thanks for watching my video. Please don't forget to click like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to see my latest uploads. Have a good day! See you on my next video.